Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining Loudon Agile Network today. Today is the last session of our 2025. Our speaker for tonight is 𝗬𝗲. He is the author of Untapped Agility. He leads the firm Fewell Innovation. He chairs PM Book Guide for 2025 edition. He's the founder of three communities. I can go on and on and on, but
Mhm.
I think we all know 𝗬𝗲 well enough. He doesn't need like further elaboration or introduction. Topic, very, very interesting topic. We are in a very interesting landscape right now. There's a lot of backlash going on with Agile. Let's figure out from our guru and understand the root cause behind this backlash and the techniques and strategies that we can leverage to adapt and still work and leverage all the benefits that exist and comes with Agile. So here I hand over to 𝗬𝗲 for a very insightful session.
Thank you, Anju. That was extremely generous. I'm a little bit speechless for maybe 30 seconds because I've got a lot to say. And I'm excited to be here. I always enjoy coming to LAN to talk about the world of work and the technology, workplaces, and programs, projects, products that we're all working on. The times are changing. They are absolutely changing. And a lot of it has to do with perceptions and articulations about what actually works in the office, what works on the projects, products, and programs that we're working on, and what doesn't work. And what we're discovering is that right now, the way we talk is getting us in trouble. The way we explain and talk about a better way of being, a better way to get things that are a better way to get ROI out of investments, a better way to deliver value to customers. Yeah, it's we need to talk about how we talk. Because there's a lot of times where those of us who advocate for certain approaches, Agile, Scrum, scaled Agile, safe, and calm, that we're this person over here talking, and we're speaking all the truth and the goodness, and then everyone here is not just confused; they're backwards question mark confused. I did a swap where I took the graphic and I made him facing the talker and I made the question mark backwards. I'm 𝗬𝗲. I've been involved. I've been an Agile practitioner since the book, The Pragmatic Programmer, in the late 90s. I've been involved in, well, I'll tell you some stories as we go through this, but let me just share you kind of where we're at right now in the industry. Our current crisis is coming only after galactic victory. I don't know how many of you knew this, but 7 years ago, back in 2018, we hit the pinnacle of credibility. Agile's on the cover of Harvard Business Review, and it means that suddenly now all the executives want to be Agile, bum, 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 and we want to do it at scale, bum, bum, bum. And this was co-authored by Jeff Sutherland, famous for Scrum. So it wasn't simply a plug for the Spotify model or for SAFe or for any of those other proprietary large-scale frameworks. This was it. It was great. All right. That's right. We are now the new management standard when we're talking about delivering value to customers, and we're talking about implementing the best practices. And then, well, let's take a look at what it looks like. This is the home page. Actually, so if you Google what is Agile, great. Cover of Harvard is it. What is Agile? This is the fourth hit on Google. It's Atlassian's Agile coach. It's basically talking, and you'll notice that there are a couple of interesting things that they choose to highlight right away. In particular, you've got all the words like methodologies and waterfall. What is waterfall? I don't even, why do we call it that? To the uninitiated, that's not a natural metaphor. And then Scrum and Kanban, and look, we're talking about Agile coaches already. It's literally the name of the article. It's the first thing we're saying. It's talking about Agile coaches. What is an Agile coach? And here's the most interesting thing: this Agile is not defined by a set of ceremonies or specific development techniques. Rather, it's a group of methodologies that blah 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 blah. Is that what we would agree it is? That Agile is a group of methodologies? No, that's like, okay, so if the number 4 hit on Google and the number 1 tool that supports Agile ways of working is talking about it this way, it sounds rather tactical. It sounds rather technical. And it doesn't sound very Harvard Business Review-y. So somehow between the front page of the C-suite magazine and the actual details, we're not speaking the language that somehow Jeff Sutherland is able to speak in that article. So what does that where does that leave us? Well, this is the Gartner hype cycle. This is less than 3 months old. No, about to July is 6 plus 3 is yes. This came out in July. And this is telling us what people are talking about with Agile and DevOps. And if you've never seen the hype cycle before, it's basically what's hot and what's not. And what's hot right now, if I kind of pull on my laser pointer, what's hot right now is this stuff at the top: AI code assistants. I'm working right now on a digital transformation at a very large defense manufacturer. And that they've got 4 different business units, each pursuing their own AI code assistant. Ours is better than yours. AI augmented software engineering. It's not just the code; it's also software design. It's also about overall application performance. So the AI thing is, but then things that used to be hot aren't as hot anymore, like AI-based testing or value-based metrics, still kind of hot, but it's a lot. People are just like, oh yeah, that was so like 6 months ago, value-based metrics. And look what's not hot at all anymore: Agile COP, the Agile community practice. The people aren't seeing value in meeting and talking as much anymore. So I give a lot of credit to all of you coming and meeting and talking right here today, because at the corporate level, it seems that this is not yielding fruit, and so forth. So this is this is the hype cycle, and what I see a lot of stuff here I don't even know about. I don't even know what site reliable engineering is, and apparently I missed the boat because it's not as hot anymore. And I don't know what the application release orchestration looks like, which apparently is now becoming a little bit more standard practice. And there's a lot here that I'm supposed to know about as an Agile champion. That like, is that what this is? This is overwhelming, and the things that I do know about apparently are less interesting. So what is okay? That's unnerving. That like Agile was really cool and now it's less cool. But really, it starts to get alarming when we look at Google Trends. If you just ask Google, how hot is the Agile as a search term and Agile software development? Back in 04 is the earliest the data goes, and we hit like the climax at the cover of the Harvard Business Review in 2018. And then there's less interesting. There was a little blip there in 2021 where the numbers were, there was some data correction that Google did, and now we're a little bit more popular because of the data correction. But it's still trending in a not so hip and cool direction for those of us who are passionate about this, who've actually made a career out of this. And so, like, what's going on? Because there's other stuff that's happening. We just saw it over there in the hype cycle. We got AI code assistants, we got design ops, Git ops is really hot right now. Value stream management platforms are hot. There's stuff that's going on. So then why is Agile itself becoming less and less popular? And I've come to the conviction that it's because people are tired. They're just tired of the A word. And they're tired of all the buzzwords that have come. We spent 25 years talking about this to the scale where it's now like being, there are shows on HBO that make jokes about Scrum. And if you haven't seen Silicon Valley, it's hilarious. But I'm quoting Shakespeare here, thinking that, you know, like if the Capulets and the Montagues were just two different families fighting to the death, and two people fall in love, and it's like, you know, do we really have to call it a Scrum Master? Can we just fall in love? I mean, do we really have to call it an epic? Can we just be together? Can we feel? Can we talk about this without talking about this, so that way you can go where the wind is blowing, and where the wind is blowing right now, it's in AI, it's in deliver fast. There's trends right now around the grind culture. There's a lot of layoffs in the name of efficiencies, where, you know, like, can we talk about efficiency? Can we talk about getting more done with less, whether it's through technology or through other mechanisms? So how do we talk about this? And I want to share with you the agenda that we're going to be looking at. Agility often doesn't happen because we're so focused on Agile. We're going to talk about Agile skills versus Agile roles. We're going to talk about the community collaboration instead of tribal confrontation, and then we're going to reclaim the manifesto. So let's get into it. My plan is to make sure that we got time to have some Q&A, but I'm immediately going to ask for some input in the chat window here as we take a look into this. So the first question is, why do we do this stuff? And this is kind of a pop quiz in the chat window. If someone were to ask you, what is it that Agile's trying to do? And what is it that these techniques are making happen that really wouldn't otherwise happen? So I'll give you an example over here. So epics, features, and stories. Epics, features, stories. That's really, I'm going to make it this color. That's really let's see, there we go, decomposing work. And in the traditional language, that's a work breakdown structure. We're just trying to take something big and make it small. Let me ask somebody in the chat window, why do we do sprints? Like, well, 2 weeks. Agile says we deploy every 2 weeks. Is that the point? Does anybody have in the chat window? Yeah, they'll focus. Unju, I love it. Yes, focus on a little now, and then for the rest of the scope, for the rest of the vision, let's just like talk about that in parallel in other conversations. Let's decompose that a little bit later. Chris is also talking about feedback. How do we do feedback cycles? Well, you know, what if we simply had a monthly critical program review? What if every month, instead of doing monthly sprints, we call them monthly CPRs? And at the monthly CPR, we invite all the important stakeholders and we demonstrate what we've built and we get feedback. And we know that it's a critical program review at the end of the month. So we're going to be very focused because the executives are coming in. And Jackie's talking about risk management. Yes, I like to call it quarantine the risk to 1 month of work. Instead of going for 6 months without some kind of a critical program review or an integration checkpoint or some kind of a milestone, we're going to quarantine the risk down to one. Yes, and Brian's calling out monthly is too slow for a lot of organizations and programs. One of the things quarantine is that another one is where we have transparency actually, and I'm going to call it visibility. Visibility, so that for those crazy shops that are just go go go, and they're like dropping code every couple of minutes with their continuous development, we can have checkpoints. We can create more visibility and alignment, and go further. And so this is kind of the mindset that we're going for. Don't simply talk about the buzzword, talk about what it is we're trying to do, and maybe even use the native tongue of the environment. If there's an existing process, methodology, set of policies, if they like to talk about their product increments, and you're realizing when they call product increments, they're really talking about full-blown releases every day. That's the language they're using. We're not doing daily sprints. What is the language that they're using when I'm when I'm in an environment? Likewise, not just practices, but team structures. One of my clients is in love with Gartner. They love Gartner. It's not a best practice unless it's on Gartner's line. And wouldn't you know, Gartner is totally on board with a team of teams approach. And when you take a look at the team of teams where we've got like a small group of people working on a vertical, Spotify made it famous, and then SAFe added the cadence onto it with sprints into a release or a program increment. Well, in the government space, there's integrated product teams. And those integrated product teams are coordinated by cross-functional teams they're called cross-cutting concerns, right? Those chapters, what we would call Spotify chapters, in the IPT structure, they have a different terminology, but it's the same concept. And so my question is, why do we design it this way? Why do we have a team of teams model, whether it's described one way or another way? If someone else were to call it a program, or if someone else were to call it an organizational matrix, whatever they call it, what are we going for here? Why do we what is it that we're trying to achieve with Agile teams? Again, in the chat window, I'm looking for somebody to chime in. What do we get with an Agile team? Or what are some of the attributes that we're going for when we're designing Agile teams? As opposed to traditional teams. That's right, cross-functional, Anju, that's right, cross-functional, sometimes called full stack teams, not full stack developers, full stack teams. There's no such thing as a single developer that can do everything. But you can absolutely, collective thinking versus top-down management. So that cross-functional, like where we have a flattened structure, team structure, where we don't have the team lead and then the senior team lead and then the senior team lead. So a flattened team structure equals more collaboration. Ability to make progress independently. Yeah, in every one of these models, every one of them, you hear about empowered decision rights, where we explicitly write down, this is also sometimes called a delegation of authority, where there's certain budgetary limits that are defined. It's like you can make a $100,000 decision as a team without asking anybody permission. And so then, Jackie, to your point, the intent is to break down silos. Brian, to your point, that cross-functional collaboration means that we have faster resolutions and decisions, as opposed to going up and down the org chart. So this is what we're going for. And if someone is talking about their trains or their squads or their pods. That's another popular term. That's really what we want to be talking about, as opposed to worrying about like whether we got guilds and chapters and tribes. So this is the first kind of area, is that what we're going for is not the things on the left. We're going for the things on the right. We're not going for like the buzzwords as much as we're going for the results. And if you can advocate as a manager, or as an advisor, as a consultant, as a PM, or a product manager or product, if you can advocate for using whatever terminology or whatever structures existing in place to offer more feedback cycles, more visibility by inviting stakeholders to critical program reviews or to whatever regular checkpoints, if it's a weekly checkpoint. If we can advocate for cross-functional matrix allocation into small teams, that's another one thing that we're going for, is that a team of teams, a big team of small teams. The team of teams model was made famous by General McChrystal's book, and that's a more accessible term for it. Okay, the next one we want to talk about is a little bit more dear to home, around skills versus roles. Let's talk about where we're at with Agile roles, because up here we've got that Google diagram showing us that, you know, if the Agile buzzword is dropping off, what does that mean for my career as an Agilist? Well, the first thing to notice is that if I go into LinkedIn and I'm looking for Agile jobs based on the traditional role definitions, there's only 100 openings on LinkedIn right now for an Agile coach. 4,000 openings for Scrum Masters, 5,000 for RTEs. I thought it was interesting that there are more RTE openings than Scrum Master openings, which tells me that the industry is pretty content with the Scrum Masters they have. They don't need a lot more. What they need is they need some leadership coordinating lots of teams. RTE is one way to do it, but what if you were instead to bring your Agile skill set and your Agile mindset to more conventional job titles? Suddenly, you have more opportunity. If we're talking about someone that's focused on organizational change, business transformation, org transformation, now you got 9,000 jobs, Agile coach. If you're content with looking for the job title project manager, and you know that's not going to corrupt your soul, you can have the title of project manager and bring Agile practices and ethos and dynamics. You have 12 times more job opportunities. Likewise, as a program manager coordinating multiple teams. But Jesse, wait, is that possible? Like, will the market appreciate what I bring to bear as an Agilist, as a practitioner, if I look for those jobs with those titles? And the answer is yes. 2 years ago, when this trend really started to hit, the Scrum Alliance and the Business Agility Institute did a research study about the skills in the new world of work. And if you just Google skills in the new world of work, there's some interesting insights they found in the data in the tech industry. And the first thing is that the skill is not the same as a role. So, and particularly this was pointed at Agile coaches, that the skill of coaching and facilitation is still relevant. It's not as hot as it used to be at all, but it's still helpful. Even though the role of Agile coach is just not there anymore with the 100 job openings that we're seeing. Instead, what we're seeing is that our hiring managers are wanting multi-skilled individuals, not just multi-skilled teams, but we're looking for people that are not just simply an Agile expert, but then also have some good exposure to ERP systems and good exposure to pharmaceutical industries. They're looking for people that are deep in that Agile acumen, but then also deep in organizational change, and then in a variety of industries. Let me show you how this plays out. the traditional advice was to be a T-shaped professional. And now with a pie-shaped professional, we're seeing specific skills popping up. Number 4 on the list is Agile acumen. That's the skill set. That's understanding about the feedback loops we just talked about that visibility of customer reviews, about quarantining risk to tighter timeframes. That's the Agile acumen that you just called out in the chat window. But you'll notice what's interesting here is that there's some implicit expectations on the human skill set that are not put in job descriptions. They're often not even really put into job screenings or candidate screenings, but they're just expected to be there, like communication skills, teamwork skills, problem solving, and critical thinking. And what hiring managers are looking for is they're looking for people who have that stuff, but also have a lot of the gears. What are the technical skills you can bring in addition to your Agile acumen? So there's one of my colleagues has specialized in bringing Agile approaches to pharmaceutical drug trials. And how do we get early feedback in experimental drugs so that we don't waste a ton of money downstream on different kinds of trials when we can invalidate a particular strain or not strain, a particular rev of a chemical upstream. Tools and software, not just being in Jira, but maybe being in ServiceNow SPM. Coaching and facilitation is a technical skill, yeah, but look, it's starting to get down here in the lower levels of interest as far as the technical skills. So what we're seeing now is that there's a rise of expectation for people to bring skills to those roles. And so I'm curious, what would it look like in your opinion? Like, what are some of those roles that would benefit from people having an Agile skill set and an Agile mindset? If you were to think about your office work environment right now in the chat window, what role do you see coming up and up again that is really important, where not just the title, they really need to know about those the small collaborative dynamics of cross-functional teams. They really need to know about having multiple checkpoints. Influence, yeah. So which role, Toby, comes to mind as having a lot of influence in your organization, where like job titles, leadership? So yeah, Chris, I'm thinking that anybody, any VP. So if there's a VP role that you're looking for, like I know at a lot of banks, those kind of junior executive roles tend to be called VPs. Anybody that's got a VP of tech, I want them to have an Agile mindset so that way I can empower.
I think slightly differently when it comes to influence, Jesse. So I serve as an Agile coach, but I'm also the COE lead for both Agile and our AI COE. And I think that's where influence comes in. I help people, I make them feel empowered. Uh, I try to encourage and motivate them to innovate and not be afraid of failure. You're still using agile things without saying agile, right? Being open to or helping them know that it's fine if you fail, we dust off and we stand up again. So that's what I meant by influence.
Yeah, what I would be curious, Toby, in your role as someone that is championing an Agile culture, an Agile competency in your firm, which of your peers do you think that does not have Agile in their title the way that you do would most benefit from these kinds of skill sets and have more impact if they had those skill sets?
Yeah, I mean, my peers, all the directors, all the program managers, all of them um, who are not direct contributors and produce results to others.
Yeah, so I'm curious. That's where I'm going with this. That's exactly right. if a program manager had an Agile skill set and an Agile mindset, even though they have program manager, like how would that benefit the organization? How would it benefit their career as a program manager?
I mean, they're also becoming pie-shaped, right? Because they might have been T-shaped before, going with your terminology. So absolutely, what I'm saying is that I agree with you.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah, like you said, so like a program manager who brings the Agile acumen into that job title. So if anybody here were to apply for a program manager role, or were to be selected for a program manager role, and you had to give up your Agile job title, you bring all of that history and all of that experience. So now that you can focus on early capture of customer value, as opposed to just following the plan. And Matthias is kind of calling out a few, and I think that by an HR director, if you were to say, you know what, I believe in the people side of things, I'm going to go get my _SHRM certification and go do a bit of a career deep dive. I'm going to go pie-shaped at Agile plus HR. Now you can shape the job descriptions and candidate selections for having that Agile mindset and the Agile skill set. That would be a huge kind of behind the scenes Agile role without an Agile title. And I see it like that. We have the aha here for me anyway, is that we can now be Agile with any job title. That I think is like a real exciting opportunity for us as practitioners, where we can bring this skill set into other job titles, knowing now that Agile acumen is a high demand skill set. One more thing that is happening in the industry that, in case it's not obvious, let me help you call it out. Community collaboration over tribal confrontation. Whenever there's a lot of money, there's a lot of competition. And in fact, there was a lot of, let me go back over to this Gartner hype cycle, because I think, yeah, there it is right there. The Agile Industrial Complex. If you don't see it, here it is. No, not voting, laser pointing. The Agile Industrial Complex is quickly declining in momentum. This is all the certifications, all the associations, all the conferences are suddenly less lucrative. The Agile Industrial Complex today is not what it was 4 years ago, or 3 years ago even, where thousands of people would go to a conference and every certification class had dozens of people in it. Instead, what we're seeing now is some convergence in the community. So for example, in olden days, we had have the Agile community and the Project Management Institute community would argue with each other. One co-founder of the Agile Manifesto was quoted as saying all project managers should be taken out and shot. Meanwhile, project managers across the world said, we think that PMI endorsing an Agile community is irresponsible. They're actively encouraging irresponsible leadership and management by putting Agile out there. And then today, they're formally aligned together. The Agile Alliance, many of whom said project managers should be illegal, they should be all ostracized. And now what we're seeing is that the CEO of PMI is keynoting at the Agile Alliance conference. Half the PMP questions relate to Agile practices. That would be unthinkable 25 years ago. Unthinkable that a PMP exam would expect you to know these things. And now, right now, we're working on a second edition of the Agile Practice Guide as a joint publication between PMI and Agile Alliance. These are lifelong blood enemies. Romulus, Capulets, and Montagues, like straight out of Shakespeare. And now they're working together, and they're part of the same organizational agreement. There's an MOU and there's contracts between these organizations about swapping money and swapping ideas and IP. That was one war during the height of the movement. And then the other war was between Scrum and Kanban. Scrum is too prescriptive. Scrum is micromanaging. Kanban is free. We don't need no Scrum Masters in Kanban. It's all good. And I actually was 2 years ago. I was at Agile DC regional conference where a Kanban practitioner got up and did a talk about improving Scrum iteratively over time. And it was just basically a presentation that said, you should make these changes to Scrum to make it closer and closer to Kanban. And I was like, bro, you're just pushing for your own Kanban certs, aren't you? But today, the Scrum Alliance and Lean Kanban University are partnering together on learning programs. And so what this means is that as Agile practitioners, there's a convergence, there's a coming together where we're being challenged not to think about which practices are more effective and which practices are more prescriptive or which communities get it and which don't. We're being encouraged to come together and help each other resonate more in the community. The fact that these certifying bodies are coming together is because the Agile industrial complex is evaporating. And they're like, we need to figure out a way to make more revenue. How about we come together and then give our practitioners something that's interesting and relevant. And so this is me kind of encouraging you to rethink who you've been hanging out with, because at your local PMI chapter here in Washington, DC, we've got Agile DC coming up, and they're cross-promoting with the PMI chapter's annual conference. There's a lot to learn from each other. And I think that's an exciting opportunity. As convergence is happening, that means that there's more integration of ideas. So I have one more thought that I wanted to share with you, and I think that all of this is pointing to a reclaiming of the manifesto, that as we're being challenged to let go of the old certifications, let go of the old associations, let go of the role term, the titles, it's a chance to go deeper on the manifesto. And I'm just going to kind of throw some thoughts out there. That at the end of the day, it was really always about developing products more effectively. It's about just finding a better way of doing it. So conventional Agile might have been, like individuals and interactions, might have been maybe about having a Scrum Master facilitates working agreements. But instead, it might simply be that if we're just asking a project manager to be quiet during planning and allow the team to just step up and speak up. And when they're too quiet, ask open questions that encourage them to. So suddenly now we have a project manager that's exhibiting Agile behaviors. And if we're seeing this project manager, we can call that out and say, wow, that's really collaborative. That's really empowering. For the last 25 years, that's what the Agile people were trying to get happening. Look at you, you're making it happen. And I'm going to call that out publicly as catching people doing it right. Customer collaboration over contract negotiation, that's about how, like the conventional approach is having a product owner from the business embedded in the team full time. But, not a lot of places have that. And you have a lot of anxiety over the fact that our product owner is not in the business, our product owner is not full time, and you can't be Agile unless your product owner is full time. I've heard that. And so maybe we just start talking about a different way. maybe we just have a customer reviews with strong facilitation. And we've got maybe a senior manager who is able to field a lot of dialogue. We don't have a product owner per se, but we have strong facilitation to get alignment. So instead of a single decision maker, that's one way to do it, we can have facilitation to get consensus. And working product over comprehensive documentation, you know, like we might have a definition of done, where we do a demo at the end of every 2 weeks. But to Brian's point, for a lot of organizations, 2 weeks may not be good enough. We might have continuous integration, and that allows for, you know, frequent testing by QA staff instead of having you know, like the no titles without sprints. What if we just didn't have sprints? What if we had just 2 work streams, dev and test, in parallel with each other? And every day there's doing integration, and every day they're having check-ins, and every day, you know, maybe every couple of weeks we take a look at the backlog, but we're not calling them sprints or iterations. And then adapting to change over following a plan. We've got those the PI, the program increment, or we've got sprint planning. And then we've got the backlog refinement. Those are the buzzwords. And I find if we're having to explain this to a lot of people, we're going to lose an audience. Instead, what if we were to find a way to streamline project change request forms and make them easy? And then what if we were to have those delegation of authority where we can make project changes that are up to a budgetary amount? We're using the same terminology that our people, that our bosses use and our organizations use, just looking at ways to find more of that empowerment and adaptability. And if we do that, we might reclaim the manifesto. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. And I'm really grateful for the chance to just share with you my passions around this. I feel that we're at an inflection point where most people are looking at the dip in the Agile curve and saying, we lost the war. Actually, I think it means that it's become normal. And as soon as something's normal, it's not interesting anymore. In the way of an industrial complex, in the way of Google searches, it's just like breathing. Like we don't need a certified oxygen breather unless it's a medical device. And that means that we now have an opportunity to bring Agile skill sets and mindsets into any job title. And that opens up a whole avenue of opportunity, whether you want to be an Agile HR manager, an Agile program manager, or an Agile marketer. And then if we do that, then we have the opportunity to learn from a lot of other people that are coming together and rethinking all of this, and rethinking how the Agile Manifesto can be implemented, not with Agile practices, but with an Agile approach to conventional practices. We have a little bit of time for some Q&A. I'm going to share with you, this is my QR code for my LinkedIn profile. If I haven't connected with any of you yet, feel free to connect with me. Also, I would love to talk to you or any of your coworkers about doing exactly this. How can we have an Agile transformation without an Agile transformation? How can we maybe start talking about a digital transformation and then with feedback loops and collaborative teams, or talk about a product-centric org operating model? However you want to talk about it, feel free to reach out to me. I got a quote here: raise your words, not your voice. It's the rain that grows flowers, not thunder. Any thoughts, questions from people? Undercover Agile.
Well, one of my thoughts was it 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 just resonated so much when you said what I forget exactly how, but it's like, what if we didn't have to call it an epic? And having all this jargon, I think, made us feel like the high priesthood of Agile, and you had to do it because that's what the Agile Bible said, and it was very off-putting. And using the native language and talking in terms of results, like the risk quarantining, I think that's so profound and so valuable. And if in some ways Agile has taken a downswing, it is because of words like epic, that you had to be an insider to really get what they meant. And it wasn't directly connected to what people cared about and what really mattered to them. So anyway, I just thought that was so powerful. And I think there is also, like you said, a whole lot of Agile just became normal. And I mean, I run into a lot of tech leads and a lot of engineering managers that spent time as a Scrum Master and are very good at Agile, and they know as much about it as I do. And they're very good at living and breathing it. Not everyone, but many of them are. So, at any rate, very, I think, beautiful insights.
I love that. In particular, the point you're making, Brian, about the lingo creating side effects in our own mindset. The lingo, 𝗏𝗀𝗄𝘗, the co-creator of Scrum, said that he intentionally designed the language, sprints, backlogs, burn downs, scrums, as a way to remove the baggage that the old words had. Like a gate review makes it sound like you can't go forward. And the plan, like the plan is a commitment, and it's like it's in the contract. And so there was an idea that by using new words, we let go of the baggage of the old words, but it created these side effects like ego, like you said, and side
Yeah.
effects like confusion.
Yeah, a lot of the words like backlog are, they're 100% clear. And I think the connection to what people care about is very obvious. I think Ken Schwaber's words are actually pretty dang good.
Yeah, good thoughts. To
When
Toby's,
when I look at the safe process diagram in all its glory, it makes me want to kill myself. And there's so much jargon in it and so many boxes, I can't even remember what they do.
yeah, yeah, that was the greatest strength, greatest weakness. The reason SAFe did what it did is because people had lots and lots of questions. Well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this? And what about that? And so they did a good job of researching all those questions. How do you do agile model-based sense and engineering? How does that fit in? Okay, there you go. There's an answer. And it created this side effect. We have to do it all. And now suddenly you have this major heavyweight approach. So Brian, you're calling out a very interesting dynamic in change, which is that sometimes greatest strength can be greatest weakness.
I also wanted to ask you if Agile certifications have declined. What about all the PMP certifications, the PMI certifications? Are they same, increasing, declining?
We're seeing not a decline as much as a stabilization. That the rate of growth on the certifications, the Agile certifications, is stabilizing. And whereas it used to just be always up and to the right as far as accelerating. So there's still plenty of demand for the CSM certification as a way for employers to feel confident. In fact, that business agility report that I highlighted up here makes the point that hiring managers consistently value certifications more than the people that hold them. So there's a lot of people like, oh, my certification was dumb. It was such a boring Zoom thing. And then the hiring managers are like, yeah, let's take them to the next round. So I would encourage you to continue looking for certifications that you find rewarding, because they do help and set you apart. Thank you, Manish. Toby called out the undercover agilist. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a confession to make. I've written an article about this. Bum, bum,
Nice.
bum, for PMI
Oh, wow.
8 years ago. And so 8 years ago, I was already seeing an opportunity for people to go undercover with lightweight requirements or aligned schedules or frequent delivery or stakeholder engagement. So I'm going to put this in the materials as well. Thank you, Brian, for your thoughts. Any other thoughts, observations?
Hey, Jesse, this is Chris. In our organization, we're also seeing a uptick in ITIL.
Ooh.
Yeah, so that's starting to, I guess, I don't know, gain some traction again. Even attended a few webinars on, the marriage of DevOps and ITIL as well, and how they can coexist and
Nice.
complement each other, type deal. So, yeah, just to share, that's kind of where our organization is going at the moment.
I've usually viewed ITIL as the IT services version or counterpart to PMI and project management. That IT, as far as being the de facto global standard for how IT services should be run. And it's important for, I think, any technologist to go through an ITIL class to learn the terminology. What is a service catalog? What is a service manager? And what, like, what's the process for managing a service once a project creates it? And so I think there's a lot to be said for operational maturity as well as project and product maturity. Because once products involve projects, but also operations. Because once you have a product, you got to run it.
Yeah.
So that's a pretty important skill set.
Yeah, the value gain that I've witnessed so far is just that the common terminology that we can use within the organization, right? I think because we had kind of made some of our own terms in house, and so when outsiders came in, like, yeah, they were a little confused by it, and then new leadership came in and didn't understand our terminology and said, why don't we just use, standards like what ITIL has.
Love it.
Cool. We're almost on time. So on behalf of everybody who joined, and on behalf of the organizers, I want to extend a sincere thank you to Jessie. Jessie's been very kind to come almost every year and speak to us. And we were just talking before we got started that 2024 January, we did a panel, and Jessie, Josh Seckel, and Dhawan, and we were talking about, the future, I think Agile and AI are going to get integrated. We had no clue what was coming down the pike. and lo and behold, that's where we are today. Again, Jessie, thank you for being a perennial supporter of Loud and Agile Network. And it means the world to us that anytime we ask, you accept and you come and grace us with your knowledge and your insight. So thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts. Thank you. I do have an exciting announcement to make. Let me put that in chat. You heard Jessie, about all these extensions that are happening, all this augmentation that's happening. And honestly, it's change is good, and experimenting is good. And Loudon Agile Network is not going to stay behind. What we have noticed this year and some parts of last year, that pure Agile topics versus Agile with AI, we get a lot more participation, a lot more curiosity. And I think the industry is going in that direction. So we've made a strong decision of augmenting Agile with AI. We're not deserting Agile. We are going to remain Agile, but we are also going to augment that with AI. And so come January, Loudon Agile Network becomes Loudon Agile Network. So that's AI and Agile blended together. So LAN remains the same. So we're going to get that in January. So that's our big announcement. Once again, thanks everybody for joining. We do take a break November and December. Historically, we have seen that we don't get a whole lot of people participate because of Thanksgiving and New Christmas and everything. So we're going to reconvene in January, and we're going to come back with a new name, new energy, and here to support all of you. Thank you so much.
And the presentation materials are in the chat window. You can download them and send them out.
Absolutely, will do. And the recording, we will convert that into a video and upload to our library as well. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.